Okay, so I want you to imagine you've just found the perfect composition for your next landscape photo. You rush to mount your tripod, set up your camera, and you spend a few moments tweaking the composition until it's exactly how you envisioned. You take the shot. You've done it, or at least you thought you had. But when you load up the files, you quickly realize that your tack sharp photos weren't tack sharp at all. The excitement rapidly turns to disappointment and frustration. We've all been there. By the end of this video, you will learn exactly how to solve this frustrating issue and get tack sharp photos front to back every time by using this simple technique called focus stacking. But first, let me explain to you why your photos are not as sharp as you would have hoped. The reason is your scene is made up of 3 parts: your foreground, midground, and background. It's incredibly tough to keep everything sharp in one shot due to the limitations in your depth of field. Depth of field, or DOF, is influenced by your camera's settings. It determines how much of your scene is in focus based on what aperture you have selected. Even with a large aperture, for example f8 or f16, capturing everything in one frame is incredibly challenging and almost impossible if your foreground is very close to your lens. This is where focus stacking comes into play. This technique will prevent this from happening to you ever again. Focus stacking is where you take multiple photos, each focused on a different part of your scene, and then combining them into one super sharp exposure. This technique solves those depth of field issues and makes your photos look just as amazing as you had envisioned. So let's try this again. When you're at your chosen location, take a few moments to look around for a composition before diving straight in. Now, this won't affect the sharpness of your images, but it will help you make more informed decisions about your camera and your tripod placement. Ensure your tripod is stable and free from movement or vibrations, especially if you're photographing in or near water. While a tripod isn't crucial, you can still use this technique with a steady hand. However, using a tripod can definitely be beneficial. To get the most out of your camera, you want to switch to full manual mode. This gives you full control over your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. For aperture, use a high f-stop like f8 or f16, as a larger aperture helps you get more of your scene in focus and reduces the number of frames that you have to blend in the edit. However, using a high f-stop like f16 will most likely darken your image, so adjust your shutter speed to balance out the exposure while keeping your ISO as low as possible. But if you're photographing a waterfall, then a long exposure may be the way you want to go. In this case, you may need to bump your ISO. As you're dialing in your settings, taking a few test shots is advised, as these will help get your composition and exposure just right. After you have your settings where you want them, let's move on to focusing. You can focus manually with the focus ring on your lens or using your camera's autofocus. If you are using autofocus, many cameras like Sony offer a spot focusing mode or something similar. This lets you select a specific area of the scene to focus on, which is super easy and effective for focus stacking. Now, onto the fun part. As I said at the beginning, your scene is made up of 3 elements: your foreground, midground, and background elements. Now, if you use a large aperture like f16, you could essentially get away with using only 2 focus points by focusing your first shot 1/3 of the way into the frame, which will allow you to capture your midground and background. You then want to change your focus to your foreground, and that will allow you to capture everything that you need. However, I always like to capture 3 frames anyway, being the foreground, midground, and background, so that I 100% know that I've got the focus stack secured and ensures that you have more than enough overlap between each area. This overlap helps when creating a smooth blend where everything is in focus. That's why using a large aperture like f16 is so important. It gives you ample coverage. If you want to learn more about aperture, you can check this video out up here, where I do a deep dive into how the aperture really works. I'll put a link somewhere up here, so feel free to check that video out if you like. The last step that we need to do is finally blend our images together into one single tack sharp exposure. For this, you're going to need Photoshop. For this example, I'm going to transfer my photos from Lightroom over to Photoshop. And to do that, I want to right click, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Or alternatively, you can drag and drop your files directly into the program. Once your photos are imported as separate layers, as seen here, the first step is to align your layers. Now, you might be wondering why this is necessary if you used a tripod, and the reason is because of focus breathing. By adjusting your focus, this changes the angle of view and creates distortion in the shot. By using auto align, it fixes these distortion issues caused by focus breathing and perfectly aligns your image. So to do this, select all of your layers and head up to edit and select auto align layers. This may take a second to complete, but when it's done, all of your layers will be perfectly aligned. The final step of this process is to blend the layers together. Again, make sure all of your layers are selected, go to edit, and this time select auto blend layers. When this dialog box appears, leave it set to stack images and ensure seamless tones and colors is checked. As for content aware fill transparent areas, having this checked means Photoshop will use its content aware fill to basically fill in any gaps that may have been created by the auto align process. Based on your photo, you can either check this option and let Photoshop do its thing, or you can crop out any transparent pixels yourself. Either way works fine. Now that this process is complete, the last thing we need to do is save your newly created focus stack. If you imported from Lightroom, doing this automatically moves your focus stack back over to Lightroom. This is where you can continue with your edit. Focus stacking is more than just a technique. It's a total game changer for your landscape photography. By combining multiple shots, you're not just overcoming the limitations of your depth of field, but you're ensuring that every single part of your scene is as sharp as it can be. Imagine capturing every detail in perfect focus, from the foreground all the way to the background. That's the power of focus stacking. It turns your vision into reality and elevates your photography to that whole new level. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe and hit that bell notification to be notified when a new video does go live. And as always, I'll see you next week for the next one.